and welcome to another edition of Mega MNC on ET Now. I'm Anisha Jain. Well, this one is a special one indeed because I've personally been a big fan and a user of this brand. And with over 500 brands and 3,900 beverage options, this one is clearly the world's largest beverage company. No prizes for guessing, it's Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola has been calling India its home for the last 30 years and is one of the top 5 markets for them. But what's the road ahead and what the roadmap for success is going to be in India? We'll decode all of that with Mr. Sundeep Bajoria, Vice President India, as well as Arnab Roy, Vice President Marketing India and Southwest Asia. Hi gentlemen, thank you so much for making time and speaking with ET Now.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Something that has been concerning me as a consumer, because I've been using Diet Coke as well as, Diet Zero and Coca-Cola Zero for the longest time. My question to you is, does it make me any more prone to cancer given the reports that we've been hearing?
So important question, Anisha. So in that, let me actually open a nice cold can of Diet Coke. So two things. The ingredient in question is aspartame, which is there in Diet Coke. It does not exist in Coke Zero.
Okay.
So that's one thing. Aspartame, very interestingly, is one of the world's most researched food ingredient. So these concerns about aspartame is not a new one.
Okay.
It's been going on for the last 30 years. And across all the continents, most universities and most labs have done extremely detailed researches on this ingredient. And every time it has come out as completely safe. That's one. Secondly, if you actually go through the report of what came out, it doesn't say that aspartame causes cancer.
Okay.
It essentially says that if you have, say, around 15 to 20 products with aspartame in one go, you are in the same risk level as, example, aloe vera,
Okay.
or red meat, or going to a barber shop. So if you actually go through the report, you have to get into the details. So absolutely, you should not worry about it. If you like your Diet Coke, like millions around the world do, just go and please continuing to have your Diet Coke, and I'm going to enjoy my Diet Coke through the interview.
So it's fair to say, Sandeep, that the product is being produced and distributed as widely as ever?
So we continue to expand on choices that we offer to the consumers. So there has been no stoppage or any slowdown on our production or distribution of any of our products. Rather, as consumers have been opting for zero sugar and lower sugar choices, we have been actually expanding it.
Sandeep, how have been the last few months for you? It was an erratic summer, erratic monsoon, difficult times?
So if I look at a longer term, I think we are entering into this super cycle where the beverages and the soft drinks within that has actually been gaining significantly ahead of the rest of the FMCG. Every few years, we see summers which have a lot of rains. And this was one of those summers where we were challenged. But the work that we have started to do around recruiting more consumers, getting into more households, being present in more stores, actually gives us an edge. And that is how we continue to grow even through a very difficult summer. And as we get into out of summer and these months now, the journey becomes easier, yes.
But you've still managed to do a double-digit volume in the last few months, and I'm guessing it's likely to pick up with World Cup, etc. lined up?
Absolutely. I think as Sandeep said, yes, I think there was a little bit of a challenge in, I would say, 1 or 2 months. But we still are on track to meet all our targets for this year.
And what are those targets?
They're pretty good targets, pretty strong targets, because India is obviously considered as one of the most important, I would say, growth markets around the world. So I think the targets are pretty strong, but I think we feel very confident that we'll be okay on those. But yes, as I said, I think the momentum is very good. And as we head into Q3 and Q4, I think we have the interesting tailwinds of both the World Cup, but also a lot of festivals going on.
Right.
And I think over the last 2 years, I think what we have been trying to do, ensure that we are not just seen by consumers as summer products, but products that can be enjoyed throughout the year. And clearly we can see that the seasonality which used to be there, I think that's flattening out in a very encouraging way.
So let me build on that. So if I look at what's happening within the Indian consumer space, historically we have for long been associating packaged beverages with summer, with heat.
Yeah.
And the reality of Indian consumer was most of our celebrations and festivals were in the second half. And festivals are the time for consumption. They're the time for celebration.
And coming together.
Beverages have to be part of that and coming together. Absolutely. And that is what we have repositioned on how do we participate to celebrate all the different festivals of India. And this year is truly special with the World Cup, with the festivals coming along and a longer extended time for the festivities. So absolutely.
So I'm guessing double-digit volume growth for the full year. Is that a realistic target?
Absolutely.
Okay, fair to say. But since we're talking about World Cup and Coca-Cola has been synonymous with those, big momentous ads, right? What should we, look forward to when it comes to the World Cup? Like, taste the thunder and Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. Those have become those taglines that you always associate the product with. What more is lined up with the World Cup coming in?
So 2 or 3 things. I think first, as you rightly said, I think sports and sports events are a part of our DNA because I think they give very strong anchors to activate not just consumers, but also all our key customers, traditional trade, modern trade, both, and also have partnerships with our bottlers. So I think it's a very nice ecosystem it means to be a part of. And whether it's the FIFA World Cup or Olympics or the FIFA Women's World Cup that's being activated in some parts around the world, the ICC is going to be a big event for us. Happens to be the second largest sporting event in the world. So it is important for us, but also in markets like Pakistan, Bangladesh, South Africa. So you can expect to see a lot of interesting activation. I think, to be very honest, what used to happen, 10 years ago, is that you probably had one nice, big, iconic, I would say, television commercial. And that's over. And we have been speaking about it for in a lot of interactions. I think as you move away from a TVC heavy plan to a wholly integrated plan, which will have a lot of work around the shopper marketing stuff, digital, on-ground activation, experiential. So it's going to be a very different approach. And I think that's the way to go around it. So hopefully at the end of the day, after doing all of this, we still have to drive the business.
Yeah.
So there has to be a very clear ROI, which we feel okay about, but let's see. And
but
we're
I guess
excited.
and that's the holistic branding that came up with Open Happiness, Real Magic, Masterpiece, etc. as well. And I'm guessing that's the way for this World Cup as well. But Sundeep, just coming back to the point that we were discussing regarding a bit of a summer blip that we saw perhaps, are you seeing any change in consumer trends in terms of, let's say, down trading or looking at different set of products? Is there any other geography in terms of rural versus urban? Do you see a big distinction in terms of the consumption trends?
So, thank you. One of the things that we have been driving is how do we make sure that we don't look India as one composite, but make sure that we are winning in every India that we operate in, which is where the generic models of urban or rural actually gets broken down much deeper in the way we started to operate. And that is what is happening. Again, we don't operate like the typical automobile company where there's a once a year pricing. We have a philosophy in beverages which we call BPPC, which is brand, package, price, and the channel. And a combination of all those 4 determine what should be the pricing. There would always be certain price points which are more memory carrying for consumers. A 20 rupee single serve package would always be there. But there are a range of packages and a range of brands which we manage to make sure that the consumers are getting a beverage offering at the right occasion, in the right channel, in the right brand. And that is how we make sure that we are addressing the needs and the choices for each of the consumers. So no down trading. There would, of course, be some promotions. There would, of course, be some premiumization, and both of them have to go simultaneously.
Okay, so let me break it down into 3 parts. Sorry, you had something to add.
No, I just wanted to add a few data points,
Sure.
I think, which is interesting. Yes, there was a blip, but we saw one of our highest market share gains, I think, in the last 4 to 5 years, probably more than that in this quarter. And secondly, one of the key metrics we're all working towards is how to increase your household penetration. And I think even though the summer was not very hot in a lot of parts of the country, you still saw the household penetration number going up, which again is a very positive sign because it actually clearly shows that the consumer is now more willing to accept the category as a part of their everyday need. And I think that's a very important metric we see to see if that the long-term sustainable growth is actually feasible or not.
Well, that's the interesting point that I wanted to deep dive into with respect to the penetration, because one would assume that it's already deep enough. It is what, 80-90% in terms of distribution, I would guess, because you see Coca-Cola, Thumbs Up pretty much everywhere. So how are you driving that penetration further?
Yeah. You want to start and I'll build on it.
So let me put penetration in two aspects. First, in terms of households, what we measure, close to 35% of Indian households only would have a penetration of a soft drink. That leaves a massive headroom. Almost 2/3 of the Indian households do not regularly have a soft drink at home. Okay, unlike a lot of other FMCG categories, which would got to a 90 and 95% penetration levels, the opportunity for beverages is massive. Similarly, we continue to expand on reach of our outlet universe. So if in India, all the outlets which potentially could sell a beverage is somewhere between 12 to 14 million outlets. We have only reached 4.5 million till now.
Really? Wow.
So the opportunity in the headroom for us to continue expanding is massive. And that is where the work that we are doing, connecting a household penetration through a grocery, through a wholesale, is going to be absolutely important. And the work that the bottling system and all of the companies starting to work is how are we, one, like Arnab said, connecting to a consumer's experience of 360-degree, social, digital, television, radio, print, everything, but also making sure that we are available at an arm's reach in every channel that the consumers go to.
It's quite funny because anecdotally, I would have assumed that the reach is much higher and the penetration would be much higher, but I guess that's the difference of data versus what you see near to us. And I think Arnab has been doing a great job that you see it everywhere. So you assume that the penetration would be a lot higher. But since we've addressed the demand side of things, let me talk about the supply side a bit as well. Last couple of years were a bit challenging, right? Whether you call it on account of inflation, supply side disruption, etc. How are things on the ground now with respect to how the raw material pricing is, trending to be, and with respect to supply disruptions, glass, etc. Is everything in place?
So with every challenge, there is always this opportunity. So we had the challenge with COVID and supply constraints. Started off with China, spread around the world. Of course, we got impacted. But at the same time, the consumers also were looking for comfort. And soft drinks give you a very, very low price entry for getting that comfort. Also, the safety of brands, the promise of big brands like Coca-Cola always brings the consumer back. So we had a challenge and we had an opportunity, and how we started to bridge those two. From a supply side, we used to invest an average of 2 to 5 new lines every year. That has suddenly expanded to 17 lines last year. And this year we'll be going with 35 new lines. So this is a journey, not a one-off, but a journey as we become better in terms of how are we addressing those choices with the consumers and making ourselves even more and more relevant, like Arnab was talking about. You want to build on that?
No, I think there were, certain challenges last year. I think you would have seen the macro trends. Inflation definitely is cooling down a little bit, and I think that's obviously helping all of us. There were some challenges in mango pulp for Maaza. And I don't know whether you're probably aware of it, we are the world's largest buyer of mangoes, mango pulp. And it's interesting because if there is a little bit of a disruption, it starts impacting everything. And that's what makes Maaza a little complicated business overall than any other sparkling drink. But I think we have been working very closely with a lot of our sustainability programs on ground, working with the farmers to ensure that we are able to build a very strong, consistent, and sustainable supply chain for mangoes. So yes, are there going to be challenges even in the future? Absolutely. And that's the cost of, doing a big business out here in India.
Maaza, it's one of those homegrown brands, right? I think Thumbs Up has already reached that 1 billion brand stage. So has Limca as well and Sprite as well?
No, not Limca.
Okay, so Sprite has. What about Maaza and Limca then?
Yeah. So Thumbs Up is the largest brand.
Yeah.
It became a $1 billion brand in 2021. If you look at the retail consumer value of Thumbs Up, it's probably one of India's top, I would say, consumer brands overall.
True.
Iconic brand. Sprite is also there, extremely close. It became a billion-dollar brand last year.
Hmm.
Maaza is close. I think there's some way to go. Very hard for me to predict whether it can become a billion-dollar brand this year, but we feel confident it'll happen very soon.
Okay, sooner rather than later, we'll wait by to see that. But just coming back to business itself, you were explaining to us in terms of pricing how it is really very dynamic. But given the fact that raw material prices have been coming off, as Arnab also pointed out, is there a case that the prices will be kind of brought down as well, or that is also very dynamic and it keeps on happening?
So we usually do not roll back prices, but we definitely build portfolio which would help the consumers to even get more attractive price points.
Okay.
And so you would see more packages which would not only cover a 40 and a 50 price points, but also potentially a 30 price point and a 20 price point. And those would expand faster. And that's the way we manage the BPPC, the pricing to the consumers, that you would have more offerings at a lower price points as against the higher price points.
You know, but the other thing that you were talking about, that every challenge is an opportunity, but that opportunity exists not only for you, for others as well, right? And we have seen this heated competition with some other big players also entering the sparkling beverage kind of category. Threatened by the competition at all?
Actually, from where we are, we actually love it. And let me expand. India has one of the smallest per capita consumption for soft drinks. Our consumers have still to learn to pick it out of a bottle or a can. And that's the journey for all of us. More competition, more investments within the categories is actually fantastic for the industry. And then we know how can we get back to making Coke and Thumbs Up and Sprite to be more and more relevant to our country.
And I guess that comes to the point that you've already been gaining market share despite the tough conditions, right? But the other competition that you're getting, not only from other players, is the entire health category as well, right? And there has been this long-standing debate of how, you know, the carbonated drinks are not that healthy. But you do have other portfolio as well, right? The juices, etc. as well. Talk to me about how you're trying to manage this entire myth around it being unhealthy and how Coca-Cola is looking at portfolio transformation.
So I think it's an important question, very important. We address need states. And there are 8 or 9 very important beverage need states, right? There is an opportunity for a kind of a beverage at some point in the day, I would say throughout the year. And exactly as Sundeep said, even within the sparkling portfolio, when we do our overall opportunity size mapping, I think the opportunity is still huge, massive. So I think it's important to understand that first, let's not forget that sparkling will continue to be a phenomenally big opportunity. And you mentioned competition. A lot of the competition is actually still happening in the sparkling space, right? Most of the big brands who have actually, or at least have plans to launch, they have their entire plans primarily in sparkling. And that's the right thing to do because the numbers are there. If you compare or index India's sparkling consumption versus a market like Brazil, the per capita is almost 10 times.
Wow.
So it's that's the headroom you have. Having said that, and when you want to address other need states, yes, I think there's an opportunity for a lot of other beverages. We are, planning to have a few experiments. We have already been launching a few things. We continue to be India's largest juice, overall company with both Minute Maid Pulpy Orange and Maaza. And they address a specific, I would say, need state once again. Can we do a lot more? Absolutely. The question is it going to be profitable? Is it going to be sustainable? And is there enough scale in that? And so we have our internal, I would say, metrics. Once any new idea is able to take all the 3-4 important metrics, absolutely they'll be in the market. So a lot of action will happen. I think some interesting experiments over the next 6 months. And just keep an eye out for them.
I'm waiting by to get my hands at some of those experimental drinks of yours as well. And what are the new launches lined up? Because India is already the 5th largest market when it comes to Coca-Cola globally. And given the kind of opportunity size you're telling me, we're probably going to be top 3 very soon? Okay, let's see when that happens. But just wanted to talk about the other strategic initiatives that, Coca-Cola has also been undertaking. And one of such was the acquisition of Thrive. Talk to me about the rationale behind that, because that seemed a bit off the usual bread and butter, if I can call it that.
So Thrive is actually an acquisition which is very, very strategic. We took a small 15% stake in there. what Thrive does is it has already reached a 12,000 E&D network. These are the stores which needs the digital capability to make themselves more and more relevant in this new era. Our partnership is actually going to bring together the requirement for millions of eating and drinking stores, HoReCa stores around the country, with expanding their capabilities with the digital and our relationships. So it's a three-way win-win for our customers, for our partners, Thrive, as well as Coca-Cola. And that's the idea for taking a small strategic stake in a capability builder like Thrive, and that's going to continue to expand.
So are you looking at increasing it further, more than 15%?
Whether we take an investment or not is a different decision, but definitely scaling up Thrive to reach a lot more E&Ds is definitely going to happen.
That's been one of the strategies as well, right? I mean, the partnership with McDonald's, for instance, is iconic, is a case study on its own. But any more such distribution networks that you're looking at, some more channel partners or something of that sort?
Yeah, you want to build and then I can add.
We continue to expand in more and more customer partners. Very recently, you would find Subway to start selling Coca-Cola as well. And that's an industry dynamic. Delhi Airport is another one. As you get into that airport, you will start finding the beverages of your choice with Coca-Cola and a lot more vending machines there. So that's a journey that we are continuously on. And that's the secret to also winning in more and more share and more market.
Yeah, just to build on that and also connected to the question you asked me earlier, as you get into new other categories, you may not be able to, you cannot depend on the existing distribution infrastructure because it is probably tailor-made to certain kind of products.
Sure.
So for some new experiments that we might launch, you might need a proper D2C network. And do we have the entire blueprint on that? Well, not yet. But I think that's the way to go ahead. You will have to experiment with slightly different distribution model depending on what the end consumer is and what the nature of the product is. And obviously that will impact what the margin structure is and therefore what you can do with it. So very good question. Lots of things happening in this space. I don't think we have all the answers, but I think to only experiment and make it happen on the ground is the best way to learn.
Sandeep, since we're talking about the strategic initiatives, I also wanted to touch upon the entire bottling unit because the strategy globally seems to be the fact that you want to get asset light. And we had seen the first round of divestment happening in 2019 itself. What more is in the pipeline?
So first, it's a good space because soft drinks, after a long time, have started to attract capital. So we are liking it that the industry is expanding, we are winning, as well as we are starting to attract more and more either investor capital or a provident fund or even competition which is coming in. So it's an attractive place to be in for the next few decades.
Sure.
Coca-Cola company have always stated that we would like to be the smallest bottler. That also comes with, we would also want to continue expanding in India, continue investing behind it. We need to make sure that we meet both the objectives. Investing in India, continue to build capability to execute, as well as reduce the company's shareholding in India. It's a journey. We did some work in 2019. More will happen in the future. It's work in progress.
Okay, work in progress. But since you're talking about investing in India, investing into the brand, are the ad and marketing spends likely to go up? I don't think you need that because you already have a vote of confidence from the likes of Elon Musk and Warren Buffett of the world, who are avid consumers. Warren Buffett says he has 5 a day. Talk about all those health myths that we're talking about. The guy's living it up and he's saying he's happy having his share of Coca-Cola.
Absolutely. He's one of the best ambassadors that we have. And he actually has
not
a Diet
paid
Coke.
at all.
And he has a Diet Coke, by the way. His favorite drink is Diet Coke. Bill Gates, who is completely into everything you can understand about science, technology, innovation, he has at least 7 to 8 Diet Cokes a day. So just going back, you can absolutely enjoy your nice Diet Coke, chill Diet Coke, how much ever you want.
And add to that Elon Musk as well. So I'm guessing there is some sort of connect between all of these intelligent minds liking Diet Coke. Not doing any marketing here, but I think that leaves a good food for thought. But the other big talking point, and there's always been this controversy around, sustainability and how, of course, Coca-Cola has to use a lot of plastic as well in their packaging. What's the way forward when it comes to sustainability?
So we already have a global commitment. We call it the World Without Waste, where we have promised to make sure that 100% of the plastic that we put out in the world are not only collected back but recycled.
Just before I let you go, gentlemen, help me demystify an urban legend. What's about this secret recipe, secret ingredient that's locked up somewhere as far as Coca-Cola is concerned? Is that the real thing?
So let me try to attempt to answer that. Actually, yes. I think it's not a secret ingredient. It's actually a recipe, as probably you were kind of mentioning, which is kind of there inside in Atlanta, kept in a vault, in something what we call the world of Coca-Cola. Yes, we have tried to create some magic around it, because at the end of the day, our brand is very simple in terms of product, but it's still been very magical. The formula has stayed the same. The formula has stayed the same for more than 100 years
Since the
plus.
19th century?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's 1886. So since then, initial years, yes, there's been some modifications. And for all these years, it's if you actually go and have a look at the ingredients, once you read the ingredients, a lot of the perceptions about this product, okay, Coke having preservatives, there are no preservatives in Coca-Cola. So actually, you can actually see, remember 100 years ago, there used to be very few things which had chemicals.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are actually still naturally extracted. So, but it's a combination, which is the magical thing, which is what is also liked by Warren Buffett. And yes, I think there is history to it, and it's kind of nice to have a little bit of a magical story around it.
Can I add there?
Sure, please.
So there are two realities. One, this is one recipe which remains standard globally across all 200 countries that we operate in. So, of course, there is nothing which is artificial which is added here. There is nothing which is prohibited by any of those 200 countries. Two, the magic is actually on the front of the pack, not in the behind, which is the name Coca-Cola. And that's what is the magic.
Okay, that's definitely the secret, guys. Thank you so much for telling me. Even if I didn't get the secret recipe or the secret ingredient, but nonetheless, I at least got the secret of how Coca-Cola manages to keep it standard across the globe. But with that, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. It was a pleasure to have you on.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Nisha. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Indians are going